So, returning to the MCU now, let's finally on this show here talk properly about Guardians of the Galaxy. I say that because this movie came out a year and some change before B.S. Beaton Bailey even started, right? So, yeah, we talked about Volume 2 when it came out, and we talked about Volume 3 literally last year, right? But we never talked about the first volume, right? The one that had it all, right? We mentioned it before, as far as, best MCU movies go, but we never really talk about it, right? So yeah, this movie is turning 10 years old today. I mean, look at that, right? August the 1st, literally Emancipation Day, right, was when this movie came out, right? And I think, yes, I did go on the holiday to see that. I don't think it came out the day before, right? But I think I went on the opening. Yes, I went on the opening day to see that, right? If I'm not mistaken. I went to IMAX and I remember.
I try to remember my memories of this. I think I didn't see this. Well, when I saw this on. Okay, remember we had Alias, Trinidad.
Yes.
It was, I think, the following weekend they had a big thing with Alias. So like that, the first weekend was they had a street parade. This is when Larry Hama came to Trinidad, and I went to his little talk. He had a little talk about Alias he did the day after, but he had a big street parade thing. It was kind of weird. But I remember that. I remember
come to think of it, right? I was at that Alias, so I went to the Sat. Well, sorry, day 2. That would be Saturday. I went with you. You were there with that, but I didn't see the street parade. Yeah.
No, the street parade was on the Friday. That was the day before.
Okay, I wasn't there for that.
Okay, no, right. So in oh gosh, it was in Financial Complex now. He had a talk with Larry Hama, had a speech, and there was a kind of homage and a kind of documentary catering to his life or whatever it is. Oh, by the way, this is a little side note thing. Like, it kind of fucked up what's going on with him right now, right? Like, you find out that he don't really own any of his G.I. Joe stuff and all of his material, and he kind of broke.
Oh, wow,
wait. So in my head, it's like, wait, Larry Hama don't own Silent Interlude, like this absolute classic of a comic he don't have. That a little fucked up when you think about it. Whatever. Anyway,
that's insane.
Yeah, so this was roughly 10 years ago. He was he had a talk. It was great, and then he had the thing in the right. So when we went to Center Excellence, he had a talk there, and that's where I knew him from. And I remember asking the question because I didn't see the movie yet, but I knew they got the special effects good, and I like, oh well, when the Bucky here movie coming out now, because like you could get fur on animals now looking good now, and that's what the big sea change was with this film. This film, I would argue that this film was the real tipping point of the MCU, not Avengers. Avengers was you could make the billion easy kind of thing, right? You could easily make $1 billion kind of stuff. But this film is the film that said we could fucking do anything now.
I'm inclined to agree with Ricardo.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
Now.
Yeah.
If we could make you invested in the goddamn tree and space talking raccoon, that's it. Anything goes from here on in. We could
and that was the legit gamble that they make, right? Because they introduced characters that, like, I didn't even know who they were. I didn't know who Star-Lord or Groot or any one of them were, right? Yeah. And many people didn't know.
I was familiar enough with the Guardians, but not this version of them, right? And then here's the thing. Director, I only know him from Super. I'm like, wait, this real like dung kind of dung. He's a trauma director, I think. And I don't know anything about this dude other than Super at the time.
Yeah, I saw Super once. It was
right, and I was like, wait, it's this dude, and he's like a low budget. He's not like a low budget, middling budget guy. Like this dude, they're giving it. I'm like, all right. And at the time, because you don't know, because remember before that, this was Joss Whedon, doing the Avengers, that stuff. So it's like you get big, amazing director, not no names to do this stuff. And I was thinking, what did this? A lot of people saying, and I didn't necessarily believe this, but I didn't know. I was like, they have too much confidence in this, like see what's gonna happen. But the idea was like, no, they're just gonna throw this dude to slaughter now. Like he's just gonna think, and this gonna fail magnanimously, and it's gonna be, well, ironically, we're gonna make a reference because the reference comes in this Howard the Duck. It is gonna be like this total disaster of a movie going into theaters kind of thing. But it was looking good. It was looking funny and interesting. The couple of clips I saw was like, all right, but it's actually really funny and hard though. And then what you realize, Marvel unlocked the secret, which is give them working freedom. give them a big enough space. Right? It's still a sandbox, but it's such a big sandbox that you can't see the horizon. That's the trick. And they absolutely nail it with this fucking movie, Jared. Like, I love this movie. It still is in my easy top 10 of the MCU ever. And I just
same here too.
Such an excellent movie, dog. I did not expect this shit to be so hard, though. Excellent sci-fi. And there's another thing too, is we haven't seen like good space stuff in a while now. Like an outright space epic. Because last time we see it was with Star Trek. And Star Trek didn't really show it off in a fantastic way. Like it was just Star Trek in 2009. When the Into Darkness came out, that was what year? 2013, I forget.
That was 2013. 13, yes.
Right. That was early in the year, I can't remember. I really can't remember. I think it was a little early in the year. I think that is just that. And that wasn't really showing up space in a magnificent, like amazing looking way. It's all these little like really, really great calls they make with it. And it's just truly fantastic. Love this movie. There you go.
Yeah. So we kind of sell stuff out there, right? So it's a good thing it brought up Elias, right? Because I know they would not have their 3-day event take place on the weekend that Guardians of the Galaxy drops, right? So I believe, if I'm mistaken, that was the week before Guardians came out, right? I believe that's how it went out, right? But anyway,
No, it was the week after. It was the week after.
So okay, what
they announced it. They announced it. And they say, look, I forget what it was, but I think if anybody who had Alias tickets, it was they could get like relatively easy tickets, or it was something to do with thing. But if I remember correctly, they made it a whole event. So people came in costume. I think if you came in costume, you could pay half off, or just something. I forget. People online could correct me on what.
Back in the days when like IMAX and stuff was doing things and collaborating.
Right, it was that, right? Yeah, it was something like that. So it was a whole thing, and that is when you see the real energy and the audience wait for. Because if you're a cosplayer, you're off the beaten path, right? Like, let's admit that, right? And it was for that crowd, and that sensibility of the film and the thematic nature of the film. And I just staying down in the audience and seeing something interesting happening. I was like, what in history happening here? Because it's like it catering to a different crowd, right? And I don't want to get into some big aspect of like some big social change in society or anything like that. But it's not a surprise that it's around the same time at fourth wave feminism happening and all these things, right? It's just people's sensibilities about how we should see the world and emotional states and how to feel and how to deal with problems in terms of dealing with trauma or whatnot. And that is why this movie hits like a nail on the head for a whole heap of people now. Yeah, in terms of trauma and being the outside person and that kind of thing. This gun just really understand that stuff very well. Absolutely understand that shit perfectly, Judd. And that first movie does blow away everybody in that sense, Judd. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and in terms of that, right? Because you have to remember too, this is in phase 2, right? So phase 2 didn't start off well. Like 2013 was kind of hit or miss.
Well, it was Iron Man. It was Iron Man 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's how you feel about that.
Did the Dark World come out as yet?
Sorry, what's that?
Did the Dark World had come out as yet by that time?
That's what I was about to say. Because right after Iron Man 3 was Thor: The Dark World, which is a show I still defend. It's dumb fun, but it's a huge step down from the first one. So at least Ragnarok kind of brought. At least Ragnarok brought Thor back.
Another thing, and again, we could find out if there's a lot of like behind the scenes shenanigans, like how much control did Perlmutter have at this point in time, and who was in relation to who. But you could tell it's two different schools of thinking battling over, for lack of a better term, the soul of the fan base, right? Like, where is going to go? Are we going to do dark, dour bullshit or make it more dark and serious business like how phase 1 was? Or are we going to like be all weird and irreverent and, lean into the more, for lack of a better term, upbeat but hope-punkish kind of attitude towards what the MCU eventually leaning into ultimately? I don't know. But at the time, you don't notice. It's just like, oh, well, they're just pulling this off. Because a little something also came out in 2013. Man of Steel. And that was a whole thing. That's a whole part of the discourse. So a lot of like interesting seeds were being planted around this time now. In terms of this film. So go ahead. Sorry.
But you're right though. But 2014, boy, I will say Marvel Studios was certainly cooking shit. They had two, I would say, classics on their hands, right? The first being Captain America: The Winter Soldier, which we covered earlier this year. Still top tier, number one for me as far as favorite MCU movies go. But to follow that up with Guardians of the Galaxy, and it got just the same amount of praise. I was like, wow, okay, so 2014 was a great year for the MCU, right? So yeah, just talking quick about my history with it, right? So saw it in IMAX, absolutely loved it. It was one of my favorite movies of 2014. I think it was my top favorite at that year. I can't remember if it was number one, but it probably was, right? I did not expect that it would have succeeded in its mission, which was just basically, yeah, you know what I mean, just to bring this a different flair to the world of the MCU. Just show that it is a lot bigger than you think it is, right? Literally leaving Earth and going all the way into the far reaches of space and introducing us to different, unique characters that we've never seen before. But still never lose sight of the fact that there's this purple guy called Thanos who is a body that we need to be careful with,
Yeah, this is
we
the first
still
movie that
kept that there.
mentions Infinity Stone.
Yes, which I'll get into in my review of this, right? But yeah, I absolutely enjoy this. And then of course, there was the volume 2 because they did say the Galaxy will return, right? So let's wrap it up here. So as far as just this trilogy goes, right? I would say that it is pound for pound, one of, if not the best trilogies that we've had in the MCU, right? In my head, just now, like a second ago, I was comparing it with the Captain America trilogy, right? But that is open to debate whether you find if the Captain America trilogy is better than the Guardians one, right? That's a nice little debate there, right? I'm not gonna say which one is better because I can't really say that I think that they are great in their own respective ways, right? But as far as just like a singular vision in terms of knowing where I want where this screenwriter and director wants his character to be, from point A to B to C. Yeah, this one nails it though, and it's really thanks to James Gunn, right? I.e., in Gunn We Trust, right? Him just knowing, okay, I want these characters to grow like this. I want them to develop like this. I want them to be challenged like this and get to this particular point, right? So even though I am not in love with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, I still really enjoy that film though. It is, for me, I think the drawback for it though, and I know there'll be a lot of people that'll disagree with me, is the sequelitis thing, is the whole, okay, we need to, it felt like there was a lot of things going on, right? And even the first one has lots of things going on, but there was still a clear focus, right? This one, Volume 2, just felt like it's doing the Lord of the Rings the Two Towers thing, right? Where basically you have to split up the team and everybody have the own side quests and whatnot, but they all have to kind of come together to stop the big bad guy, and that's what it is, right? But you really did get a solid villain, in the form of Ego, right? Played by Kurt Russell of all people. It's like, what? I love how they connected, of course, to Peter, right? Which I'll address in my review here, right? As far as Volume 3 goes, right? Absolutely love that. That was actually my 6th favorite film of last year. But admittedly, I never got around to recapping that film, right? And I wanted to watch the full trilogy so I could say, oh, this one is better than the next one, blah, 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 right? But I just never got around to it, right? But even though I really do enjoy 3, right? What I really admire about 3 is how brave it was to be dark, right? Like, just be unapologetically dark, right? You know what I mean? Literally having Peter say in Emily's show, get in the fucking car. Like, what? You know what I mean? What? Like, I was shocked when I hear that, right? But it wasn't just dark for the sake of being dark, right? It was edgy. Admittedly, it was edgy, but it was edgy for the right reasons too, and that really, well, I should say for the most part, came with the backstory, the really tragic backstory that they gave Rocket of all characters, right? And yeah, you're just watching this character who is this really strange raccoon character from the first film, and you fall in love with him, and yeah, you just realize why he is this way, right? Why he's always so angry and whatnot, right? It really worked, right? But it's just I never got around to recapping that film. So point is, I cannot say that the third one is the best out of the trilogy, right? But for me, in terms of ranking these films, the first one I still have at the top though, because I have so much great memories of this film, seeing it, recapping it, remembering lines, remembering songs, remembering moments, you know what I mean? And it's just at the end of the day, just being introduced to all these unique characters though, whether it's Gamora or Groot or Drax, you know what I mean? And all these other like the alien characters, basically. That's really what it is, right? Because yeah, at this point in time, it was just superheroes and gods and whatnot. But here you really got to see more aliens really show up and not just be background like an army like how they were in the Avengers movie, right? The first one, right? So for me, I still think that the first volume is the best entry in this trilogy, right? But I know that there will be there will be those that will think that the second one is the best, right? So, like case in point, our colleague CC, they have that literally as the best movie of the 2010s. I'll never forget hearing that when we did our Best Decade review special, sorry. And I was shocked when I heard that though. But at the same time, just knowing them, I was like, yeah, I can understand why they love that film so much. I really do, right? But it is really ambitious though. That's wildly ambitious, right? And that's one thing I always loved about the series, how wildly ambitious and how over the top and how it just plays on, just the mere aspect of sci-fi just being, we could kind of do anything. The sky literally is the limit, right? We could go to different planets, show weird aliens, weird planets and all that kind of stuff, and we could just go wild with it. And it was just James Gunn just use the sandbox analogy that they brought up earlier. Yeah, just going wild, just kind of celebrating the genre of sci-fi and comic books as a whole, right? And for me, no other show really encapsulates the joy of just the imagination of both comic books and science fiction, like the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy, right? But again, first one for me is still the best because I just have so much great memories from it, right? But Tracy, right? Well, I'll Ricardo, will leave you for last, right? And then I'll jump into just a quick run through of the movie. Yeah, your history with the first Guardians movie and how will you rank the trilogy at this moment?
Volumes? Well, let's start with that. I'm gonna go with you where that is concerned, because as much as I very much loved the second and the third one, the feeling that I got for Guardians of the Galaxy 1, it still lingers and it still gives me like I'll put it to you this way. I rate a movie by how much I have to fast forward stuff in it. Do I have to fast forward stuff in it, like when I'm watching it over, on my DVD or digital or whatever it is? Like, I do have to fast forward a couple of scenes in order to get to some other part. I do that with Phantom Menace. I do that with a couple other stuff. But with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, every frame feels like, okay, this is a good thing. And to be honest with you, like, I'm checking some of my notes here, and I remember one, not knowing a thing about this. I remember seeing some of the concept art that came out, and it's like, really, we're gonna see a tree. And a couple of my friends in the office were talking about the fact that if this raccoon turns out to be better than anything DC puts out right now, I'm going to cough down people and rage. So because we had that whole thing of like, okay, what's going on? What's going to be happening? Interesting hilarity. 2 years later, when the Suicide Squad came out, we were sitting down in the cinema listening to The Man in the Sky, or one of the tracks that was there. And it's like, but this they pulled that from Guardians of the Galaxy. Is there nothing that they could just do and be real? That was the level of vibes that Guardians of the Galaxy had. That these songs that you heard coming out of the awesome mix, you didn't want to hear it in any other movie. It felt odd, even though these are like, notes of songs that are just there. It felt so completely odd hearing it in other places. It was just ridiculous. I went opening day with my geek sister, Stacy, because we have this standing opening day thing of as much movies as we possibly can to go see on opening day. So we saw that. And I remember from the opening stinger, we sat down there watching that whole opening sequence happen. And it's like, damn, it's feelings from, the minute you start into this show. Oh my God, what's going on here? It's like, like, what the hell? We really are like, okay, Marvel, we're really going to start here. So that is a height. I feel like the film stands out, even though I will tell you this, later on, I have mixed feelings on Star-Lord, because to this day, I still say, if there are certain things he does in Infinity War that just pisses me off. But in terms of his
I will never forget how people reacted to that.
You can tell James Gunn. You can tell James Gunn is still mad about that because there's a whole part of Guardians 3. He talks about that. It's like, James Gunn. That's seriously there,
Of course, like you really had to do. But anyhow, so we could be here for a while if I go down that road. But his introduction, Star-Lord's introduction in Guardians,
this scene is great.
That was absolutely brilliant. And here's the thing about it for me. The only thing that I casually remembered about James Gunn was, hey, Scooby-Doo guy.
Right.
Because
Right.
I didn't even it wasn't putting together like, oh, what was his films before or what he was doing before, anything of the sort. But now, after Guardians of the Galaxy, it solidified James Gunn that when I heard his name is attached there executively producing something, I genuinely wanted to see what exactly was he doing, what was coming out of it. So that was also a beautiful side effect in terms of Guardian of the Galaxy Volume 1. So there's that. The only thing that I have a real issue with, and I didn't think about it at the time, it was later on that kind of thing. There's like one flaw, one little piece of flaw that I have with a character who does not understand metaphor, and then later in the film, you use something there to describe another character as like that's clearly a metaphor, and I don't know why that sticks out to me like a picker in your finger. But
Oh,
outside of
I know
that,
what you talk about. I'll bring it up.
Oh well,
yeah,
okay. So I think the execution of this is probably the best version of Drax's character.
yeah,
Like
right,
because
right.
later he just becomes, sorry to say it, yeah, they don't continue
It
joking in
becomes
a good
a
or
joke. It
way.
becomes, you know,
And that joke is so well done though. The idea of him, seeing things literally, and they right around it. Like it's not perfect, eh? Like, and you can get into some nitpicky bullshitter could be fighting it wrong about the nature of language, and it have nothing called literal and metaphor. But no, it's still I thought it was such a really funny, clever execution of a premise too. And you could say maybe it have like a kind of subtext of somebody on the spectrum or something like that, right? But I thought this was really clever. Like, it's one of my favorite things about this. Like, wow, the writing in this is so good, though. Like, what going on here?
Mhm.
Everything could like gelling together now. Yeah, go ahead.
And but you see, that's the thing. Like, because the idea of Drax being like, not understanding metaphors, it works perfectly all the way down to like coming down to where my issue is, which is like towards the third act when they've gone inside the ship, and there's something that he says, and I say to myself, well, you don't know what that means because you don't understand metaphor. So where you coming with that? But in terms of how it's put together, I mean, you even had Glenn Close there in as what, Nova Prime, and
Right. Yeah.
I mean, like, it there was something about, like, because now when you hear like a big star is joining the MCU, it's like, oh great, a big star is joining the MCU because everybody has to eat and we understand how these things work. But it was still in this quasi magical time that when you heard like, okay, Kurt Russell will eventually, join in for Guardians 2.
Right.
Or like again, Glenn Close is being there for the first one. Or even the idea that Andy from Parks and Recreation
Right.
is now this super ripped
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
You know,
know,
why,
right?
pirate.
Yeah.
why I eat all them chicken cutlets, right?
Like
Yeah, level boiled chicken breasts.
it comes like when Kunal showed off his ripped body for
Right.
Eternals. I was like, all right,
Mhm,
Kunal,
mhm.
well done you. Good luck with that. But that, I mean, those are the things that stick with me in terms of it. And again, music being a character, like music wasn't just here's a needle drop for a scene. It was a character that actually moved with the story, as opposed to
Uh-huh.
just being a bed to have the story on there. And that is kind of how I will forever remember Guardians of the Galaxy and what like Volume 1, how it felt for me.
Yeah. So, Ricardo, I know you love the film. You sort of mentioned it already. So you can just kind of expound a little bit on, when you first saw it and how you felt. How it resonates with you to this day, and lastly, ranking it right in the trilogy itself. Is it the best of the trilogy or not?
Right.
So take it away.
So no, yeah, like I saw this with the Alias crowd, and it was just kind of just fascinating to watch this with, and it's the right crowd. To be fair, like it's the right crowd to watch a movie like this with, where they love it's clearly is design, and it caters to these kind of off the beaten path types, as they say. And why it really works is that because I just didn't think that a movie of this size could be done like this in terms of the writing. At the time, I didn't even imagine somebody could even pull this off, much less for something on this scale and budget. And for them for James Gunn to pull off something like this in that way really makes it work, right? And yeah, it was just shocking. Like wow, this actually pulled this off, and it like genuinely funny, genuinely charming. James Gunn, continues to impress us with his musical choices. He does have a good taste in music, right? It just this stuff just comes around and it's irreverent and in its own way. And even though like if Avengers was the big fireworks show, this is like the friends in the corner by in the fire, having a fire on the beach, shooting bottle rockets on the side, right? It's just that private kind of party celebration.
I like that analogy. Yeah.
But it really works in that sense too. Like it's just great, great energy, but caters to a conceit of narrative and emotions in a way that you didn't think they could play it off. And it's surprisingly subversive in its own way. Now it's more it felt like an inverted subversion in the sense of how you solve a problem. It's not, oh, you're being rude and crass and you're doing the Deadpool thing, which is what was the template for subversion at the time. It's the opposite. Is, oh, the mean-spirited, super serious person. We're gonna flip this by being the jokey person, but in a more hopeful sense. And then, yeah, why the movie really works is that final sequence, which I find is such a great sequence when all of them holding the Power Stone and they just together as a family. And it does that really well. That whole Fong family side stuff really well. Like the Avengers does that kind of thing on its own, but it's more, serious and authoritative, right? In that sense. They come together through the emergency. They do the same thing here. But under different circumstances, and they're more damaged characters, and they bounce off each other in really weird ways. And that's why this works so well for me. It's just like, all right, you're surprised that somebody could write characters like that. And like, wow, this dude is like now the working template of how to like write these movies or do these kind of films going forward. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of say it. He ended up being to me the true talent that come out of all of the Marvel directors, in my humble opinion. Right? I think he's better than the Russos. Like I like the Russos, but the Russos are just good technical directors who just know to get the show off the road. I don't think they're necessarily good storytellers, right? Because their stories just kind of borrow from other shit, and is that whatever. I think they're better than Ryan Coogler. I think they're better than oh gosh, the guy who did Captain Marvel, the two people.
Anna Boden and Ryan Flick.
Right. And they were like before Captain Marvel, they were I think great directors. Just they not fit for like they can't handle big money. Like once they get them too much of a budget, they just don't know what to do. I get that feeling from them. Now I don't think Captain Marvel's all that good, in my humble opinion. Ryan Coogler, I think, handled Black Panther reasonably well, but I still think Gunn, like, on a next level, like, just a next level of how to do this material and make it work. And yeah, James Gunn on pound for pound, he, like, consistently great too, like, throughout his run. Like, I'm not a super big fan of the second one, but the second one works. Like, a lot of it is really strong stuff. The third one, I really like a lot. And I remember having this debate about whether or not the third or the first one is better. It's still real neck and neck, but I'll probably still give the edge to the first one, right? Mostly because of how much of a surprise our first one. So it had such clever, like not only great story and the characterization work, but the set pieces are clever. Like that whole Nova Squad making a net to hold back the Asta thing. Like, yeah, it's like really weird offbeat stuff now, but it's working. And
I'm gonna talk about that too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's just all of it just really, really works so well. And I just absolutely love this trilogy and Gunn as a thing, and that's why I'm really, really excited for what you're gonna be doing for the DC stuff. We'll find out. Time will tell. But I as I say, in Gunn we trust. There's a horse I have no problem betting on.
For real.
Love this first one, Judd. The first movie. It's just as I said before, it's a total sea change in what this material could be. And as I say, I think this movie is the real tipping point of the MCU. This was the point where they could do no wrong. They pretty much got away with it until a literal global pandemic, stopped them. Right? So it's that. Once you have Disney money and this large sandbox of freedom, it's not true freedom. I'll admit that, but it's still a big enough sandbox for me to not care. Right, if I could bounce around enough, it's fine. And he does that really well for Gunn. Gunn in particular takes full advantage of that, and he make it work. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So as usual, I wrote a lot of notes, so I'm gonna try to move as fast as I can. Right. So right out the gate, right, I love how it's established that music has a part to play with the emotional side of the movie. It's
Yes.
not just
Yes.
needle drops for
Very
the
good
sake
quote. Yep.
of needle drops, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
But they serve a purpose, right? I like that it's not just a bunch of billboard hits strung together to keep the adults in the audience interested in what's going on, right? So that's great.
Which,
'Cause
sorry to interrupt, but which is why when I saw the the various artists mix for Deadpool and Wolverine, that soundtrack,
yes,
that various artist soundtrack, I haven't seen the film yet, obviously, but I saw the soundtrack for that and I was like, this feels Guardians coded in terms of like the
Yeah.
different eras that the song, because you get like 50s music all the way up to, and it feels like, okay, I could see where this could live. It really does
Yeah.
something there.
They clearly use you know the oh gosh, the mixtape, the awesome mix, sorry, volume 1 soundtrack for this as a template. Clearly they did that, right? But yeah, on that, you know, the first shot, literally first shot they see in the movie is the Sony Walkman that, you know, our hero
Right.
Peter owns, right, when he's a kid, right? And it's the awesome mix volume 1, right? So I like that, right? The first song that you hear from it is I'm Not in Love. That's from this British rock group called 10cc. One thing for me, right, because I grew up on radio, you know what I mean, thanks to my mom, R&B.
Yes.
Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just that Radio 97 to the throwback classic kind of hits. It's the type of music that you hear on a Sunday and it just sort of sets the vibe now, you know what I mean? It's this R&R kind
Soundtrack
of
of our
vibe, you know what I mean?
lives, you know.
So hear that at the beginning of this movie is like, whoa, that's what you talk about, right?
Yep.
But yeah, in this case, young Peter's in the hospital because his mom is basically his mom is basically on her way out, right? You know, due to
Yep.
cancer, right? Something that I didn't notice, right, until I rewatched this, is that when his grandfather brings him into the hospital room where his mom is, he has a black eye. And then when he's talking
Right.
to mom, he says, well, you know, he got in a fight with some boys and they killed a frog with a stick. And then the mom says, you're so like your daddy, which is a very, very subtle hint at who Peter's dad really was,
Right.
right? I love, like, you know, back when we first saw, we was really thinking about it, right? But then when 2 came out, it's like, yeah, they set this up from early on, like,
Yep.
literally
Yep.
the first 5 minutes, they set up what we'll see in volume 2. I'm like, wow, right? Because one thing she says is that, oh, his father was an angel composed out of pure light. As
Right.
one of those things that you wouldn't think about because right afterwards, that's where, you know, it's flatline and she dies, right? You know,
Yeah.
that's,
No,
I just love how the whole.
it's a dark recontextualization because we know why she's in that room. That's one.
Oh, yeah.
But well, I'll get to this later. It's something that I'm not the biggest fan of, but I felt they could have handled it a little better in the ending. We'll get to the ending. It's something that only happened in the ending. We'll see.
Right. But right before she dies, she gives Peter this small gift, and he's told to open it when she dies, right? It's like a few seconds after that, you know, he's all distraught. He runs out to the hospital, he's crying, and then this large spaceship comes and hovers over him and literally like beams him aboard, right? And then after that, you get the 2014 version of the Marvel Studios logo, and all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
And then we cut to like
And I love
2016.
this sequence because it fades. It does a crossfade into it. Like it's such a great like.
Oh, you mean
little
like when
filmmaking.
the music hits the crescendo, you hear that bum, bum,
And
bum,
it-
bum,
yeah.
and then it just cuts to the scene one time. I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that was also something
yeah.
that was also
ship
something that
taking
stood
him.
out to me when I saw the
Yeah,
film.
the light.
too.
Yeah, the light beaming into it. It crescendos with the music and then it crossfades into it. Smart
Right.
call. I wish
Yep.
more movies do that.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. Listen,
Agreed.
the crossfade is an incredibly underrated filmmaking editing technique. Yeah? More people
I
should use it.
know, right?
Yeah,
As
clever.
an editor myself, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But
There are
anyway,
two things
so
in that opening. There's two things in that opening thing that always stuck out with me. One, I remember sitting down there and seeing the grandfather, and I was like, "Hey, that's Hollis Doyle," because Scandal was alive and well. So it was like Scandal, you know, Hollis Doyle is in it. But also at that point where she's talking about, you know, composed of light and who his father is and that kind of stuff, you can tell the family obviously didn't believe or may have thought that she was delirious because even the grandfather was like cutting her off and was like, don't you have something that you wanted to give to the boy? And he, you know, there's that part there where she's offering her hand to him and he sees her, you know, on her last. And that, like, you know, like runs out of the room and I think about that. I think about that whole moment there, that moment actually trailing with him for the rest of his life. You know, so that was brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. So 26 years later now, so we see Peter now as Star-Lord on this abandoned planet, right? And similar to Jessica Biel in Blade Trinity, Yeah, man, I listen to some music while you're doing his shit, right? So, because, it's a lonely planet, right? You can't blame him. So I like that, it's
I
kind
love
of
this opening.
Raiders of the Lost Ark kind of vibe. He's going
Yes.
into this, he's looking for this temple. He does
But
this.
it's a good, the great music scene.
Yes, well, that's what I'm
started a
getting
great
to right
music
now.
song,
Yeah,
a great track.
it's
Him
just
singing.
the perfect choice of song, though. It's Red Bones, Come and Get Your
Perfect choice
Love.
of song.
Yeah, so basically it's Peter doing the famous dance and search bit. That's what I'm gonna call it. 'Cause he's dancing, but he's also searching for this item, right? And yes, it is one of the biggest highlights of the movie.
I mean, it's like taking a lizard and using it as a microphone afterwards.
Yeah, when he's doing the hey, yeah, I love that, right? But yeah, what really makes the scene work is Chris Pratt, though, how he is so committed to just having fun, being silly, like I say, grabbing that space lizard and using it as a mic, you know what I mean? Something like that, right? And just how fun the song is, right? It's just a fun song, right? And it just fits with the visuals and with the dancing and all that kind of stuff. It absolutely works, right? And yeah, basically what he's looking for is just this metallic looking orb, right? Which he finds in
we
this
know
temple,
what that
right?
is later. Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, afterwards we boy Jaimon Hansu show up, you know what I mean? He's playing Korat.
Right.
And some other goons show up, right? And then we get the bit that was all over the marketing for this. And yes, when you see it for the first time, you laugh at it too, where he says, I go by another name. You may know me by another name, Star-Lord. Who?
Right.
It's how Korat
that became a meme, eh?
Who? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That accent, I love.
That became a meme. For a hot minute. It's like every time somebody do something, somebody just put the same Jaimon Hansu gif who under it, and that became it. I think it's super popular on Facebook and thing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, that became a meme, a really popular meme too. Yeah.
Yeah, and I just love Peter's response. It's like, Star-Lord, man. You know what I mean? That's that response. That's Star-Lord, man.
That's so despondent from, nobody.
Yeah, nobody knows.
That's funny.
Like, come on, y'all don't know me. That's what it is, right?
That's funny,
and speaking of Raiders of the Lost Ark, even the action scene that follows is very Raiders inspired, where it's like, okay, I have the item, I need to get away, people trying to kill me, there's a ship, there's a plane, or whatever, in this case, is his ship, right? I need to get on that, right? And there's one shot in it that I love so much, though, where it's just Peter jumping over a cliff in slow-mo. And then they just cut to him just moving forward towards the camera. I absolutely love that shot. Like, it just, overall, that whole entire sequence, that whole Morak, that's even the plan. That whole sequence, though, this in terms of just framing, cinematography, everything, I think is brilliant, though. And in terms of how they set up Star-Lord, though, is magnificent, in my opinion. So, guys, your thoughts on this entire sequence here?
Anyway. I'm a big fan. Well, first of all, I mean, I was sitting on in my seat. I remember me and Stacey sitting on there when they started to play Come and Get Your Love, and how we acted on, like, how we were in the back of the cinema getting on nuts. I really do like that whole shot that you were talking about there, that whole jumping towards the camera. You get the idea of, you're in for some kind of an adventure, but more than that, his suit. That suit that he had on, it's still one of those things that I have to go and like get a party version of to cosplay at some point in time. I remember when I saw him with that mask on for the first time, I was like, I need to get my hands on that mask. So that whole thing that just sort of solidified itself as like, this is going to be a good ride.
Yeah, Ricardo, any thoughts on this sequence?
Yeah. No, this is a solid opening sequence, great action sequence. They set up just him like outsmarting them, that he uses like that weird gravity thing. He does that nice little piece of action to just illustrate. Just do this thing on his feet. Very Indiana Jones, as you mentioned. And yeah, he's a plucky character, and it's all alien tech stuff, right? And I think the main trick to this, right? It's like it's not. You don't necessarily have powers, but everybody in the world has like super tech or teched out stuff. Like, I would, I get what they're going for. They make it work.
Yeah, exactly. So later on, he gets a call from fan favorite Yondu Udonta, played by Michael Rooker. He's pretty much the alien who abducted Peter at the beginning, right? And brought him into his band of Ravagers, right? And I love like how in Volume 2 you see more of the Ravagers, right? So
and they pay off their relationship really well in that second one.
Yes, indeed. Like we all felt it, boy. When Yondu died, so it's like
that poor 40 out from here.
At the end, the end of the movie like that, bro. Like,
not your daddy. Yeah,
I felt that. I felt that shit.
Daddy,
yeah. Basically, we learned that Peter was supposed to hold on to the orb until Yondu showed up, But clearly Peter had a different plan, right? So Yondu being Yondu is like, here's what, I got to put a bounty out on you. So it's like the other Ravagers, you see Sean Gunn is one of the Ravagers there too. I was like, okay. Yeah, set out well, basically, yeah, it's just about just finding Peter and making him pay for what it is they do, right? For the betrayal, basically, right? That's what it is, right? We then
and it starts up the whole bit there about I should have let them. My guys wanted to eat you when they first, because they never had a Terran, and that became like a running joke for at least the first half of the movie there about wanting to eat him.
And of course, Michael Rooker with that Texan accent, like we want to eat you, like that. It's just the voice he have though. It's so funny, right? So while he is not the greatest of all MCU villains, though, I think that in this movie he is quite effective. Ronan the Accuser, this just sort of a not so much a menace though. He just such an intimidating figure, Dread. That's how he looks, especially when he rocking that hammer horse and like just the opening sequence with him, Dread, and how like he literally decapitates a guy with that hammer, Dread. Like the man looks like a threat, right? So yes, people will argue that he is two-dimensional and he is flat, and nobody really cares about him in the grand scheme of things. But I think like in the context of this movie, I think that he works. He's just this tough bad guy that you don't want to cross with, right? But yeah, basically
there was like a kind of religious zealotry to him that I quite like.
They call him a zealot. They call him he's a pre-zealot.
Yeah. So I felt again. This is where I think Captain Marvel kind of fell down for me. I felt they could have explained him a little better, but they didn't do that at all. So that was unfortunate.
Yeah, they really did have a chance.
One, we get to see the destruction of, like, they address it later, but like they don't connect it as good as they could. But basically, it's implied that his planet is destroyed. We know why. Well, not his planet necessarily, but the supreme intelligence thing. That's addressed later with the planet and thing. But I felt they wanted to get Ronan the Accuser, and it's a big actor. Because
Lee Pace. I was trying to remember what show he was from, Dread.
Right. So before this show I loved him in was a little show called Halt and Catch Fire. Super underrated show.
Oh, okay. He was in that. I know you were a huge fan of that show. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big fan of that show.
Wasn't he?
Sorry?
Wasn't he an elf lord in like
that was later. That was a little later, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he was?
Okay.
That was later. That was in he was in Hobbit. The Hobbit, I think 2 or 3.
Okay, yeah. Right.
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah.
Right.
All right.
But yeah, was that before? I can't remember. When Hobbit came out, when the first Hobbit came out. I can't remember.
2014 actually. No. 2012.
2012. Right, yeah. So that was before. Yeah. So that was before.
Because everybody will ask for a trilogy, so we get the last one in 2014. I remember that. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I knew him from Halt and Catch Fire. I love his character in that show, and I thought what they could do to make the conceit play out, and he's perfect for it. He's really good. He's really clever and funny, and so on and so forth. And yeah, they make it work. Again, he's a little flat because they could address what was going on later, but it was implied where he becomes interested is what he does in the middle of the movie, and like, oh shit, you playing with fire there with a robot.
I would.
And that's what makes it kind of cool. The ending, we were talking about the ending, The ending is one of those things that how his character plays out, a little on the clumsy end, but I get it, and it kind of works for what it is trying to do. So yeah, go ahead.
Right, but basically his thing is that he wants to avenge, he says his father and grandfather and fathers, right? Yeah, basically because there's this peace treaty between the Kree and the Xandarians, right? It's like, nah, fuck these Xandarians. I want to wipe everybody out, right? So that's what it is, right? Yeah. And he needs this orb to do so, right? And we learn why later on, right? Yeah, alongside him is his Lieutenant Nebula, who is played by Karen Gillan, right? And for one thing, right? So while Tracy, I am not the biggest fan. I haven't caught up on a lot of the new Doctor Who shows, right? So like when Matt Smith was there, I forgot the other guy who came before after. That's what I started watching those, right? I'll never forget there was a season or 2 where Karen Gillan was in it, so that was my introduction.
There was a few seasons because they did the whole arc with her, and then of course when she had the child, that turned out to be River Song. Spoilers for those who never knew. But So for me, whenever I see her, the first thing that runs through my mind is Amelia Pond, get your coat.
Amelia Pond, that's the name. Yes. So yeah, I was surprised that she was in this though. Like I was, like I would if I didn't watch that the Doctor Who revival from the start, I wouldn't have even known who she was, right? But yeah, she is the adopted daughter of Thanos, and we are also introduced to Ronan's assassin, right? Gamora, who's played by my next skill, Zoe Saldana, right? We've known her from other shows. Still haven't seen Colombiana as yet though, but
I watched that a lot.
Okay, all right. And she is another adopted daughter, of Thanos, and she is the sister in quotes of Nebula, right? So Korat also works for Ronan, so he tell him about Star-Lord and all that kind of stuff. So basically, now Ronan finds out that Peter's plan was to deliver the orb to this guy called the Broker on the planet Xandar, right? So Ronan was supposed to acquire it for Thanos, and once Thanos get it, he could destroy Xandar for him, right? He sends Nebula to find the orb for Xandar, right? But Gamora steps in, and basically she says that she knows Xandar. That's the excuse, right? But then Gamora says, if this happens again, you'll be facing our father without his prize, right? So I kind of saw that as foreshadowing of how, that's basically how Thanos and the goons is like disassemble and reassemble her as a Nebula, as we saw in Infinity War and Endgame. I saw that was like a nice little foreshadowing of that. That's how cruel Thanos is, right?
How vicious he is,
Yeah, so basically, long story short, this is basically Gamora being a little bit sympathetic, Dread, because she knew what would happen if Nebula were to fail again, right? So that's what it is. I like that, right? So on Xandar now, we are now introduced to two fan favorites, right? Rocket, aka Rocket Raccoon, voiced by Oscar nominee Bradley Cooper, and Groot, voiced by Vin Diesel, who, my God, right, had the easiest job in the world to do. Like, I just did watching this thing again. I tell myself, he clearly had like a half-hour voiceover session, Dread. He came in.
Here's my thing with voiceover.
Just call him, okay, say I am Groot in this type of way. Say it, give this type of expression. And there's a variant to that which you'll get to later in the review here, right? But yeah, the easiest job in the world, Dread.
That is my heights, because I've had to do voice work for certain things. Like, what might be just like a couple lines on a page might end up taking you a whole day in terms of voice work, in terms of getting the right tonality and that kind of stuff. So on the one hand, I look at it as like, compared to what everybody else would have had to pull for that film, he get the easiest part of the stick. But in terms of being in a booth whole day and having your voice grind into that whole musky version of I Am Groot and the different versions of it, I hope he had like lozenges and all that kind of shit, because voice work is real. It could be real heights.
Mm-hmm. I'm familiar with that. Yeah. So as far as Rocket goes, though, I love his introduction, right? Which is basically him doing a voiceover, right? So he's off camera, right? And he's just basically criticizing how pathetic Xandarians are, right? He's scoping them out, he critiquing them, some passerbys. I think he's using some kind of like tablet, some sort of like specialized tablet, right? He even spots Stan Lee and he talking shit about him, calling him Mr. Smiles, and he call him a pervert. Yeah. He just talking to some fine ass alien chick, right? But like, come on, man, really? He then spots Peter, who is talking to Karina, who you'll see later on. That is the assistant of the Collector. We'll get to him in a bit. But he just there thinking that, Rocket want to get the orb as well, but actually, no, he just found out about the bounty, so he just basically want to get Peter so he get the money.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I like that. It's just, I just do it for the money, bro. I don't know about orbs. What we're going on here, right? So Peter now.
Groot is out there drinking water from a fountain that, may not be...
Just that shot alone is the 2 times it happens is just hilarious, right? Because he tells like, no, why are you doing this for? You look like a goof, right? Just paraphrasing here, right? So Peter meets the broker, right? Not the Collector, but the broker, right? So he just come to get his money for the orb, right? But then when Peter mentions Ronan, he overheard about Ronan, yet broker's like, nope, I don't want this. He sort of chases him out, right? And Gamora is there. Sorry?
No, I'm saying he doesn't need that heat.
Yeah, he don't want that heat, he don't want that smoke, so it's just like get out of my establishment, right? Gamora's outside and, doing a little small talk or whatnot, right? And then Peter being Peter, I mean, I don't blame him. I mean, green skin chick, right? Who looks like Zoe Saldana. I mean, of course, I'll talk some game, right? So that's what he does, right? But I
Peter
just love
really
how,
acts like the James Cook of that franchise.
yeah, he is channeling James Cook from the Star Wars Kelvin trilogy,
Gotcha.
though. List
Gotcha.
that, hey, green skin chick, right? I had to talk to you, right? Okay, you look hot, right? I just love how there's a moment where he just start talking about, oh, he's a man of integrity, right? And then Gamora just kick it, bop, we grab the orb and run away. I love that, right? Just quick and to the point, right?
Sure.
So there's a chase, and in between the chase, Rocket and Groot try to capture Peter, right? This is great shot though, and I swear, like when I saw it in IMAX, right, which was in 3D by the way, I thought that was like a 3D shot. So when I watch it again digitally years afterwards, like no, this was all in camera dread, where basically Rocket pull out his gun, right, and then it does this. The gun itself does this double extension forward, right, but the camera pulls back with each extension dread. I'm like, what? Like I wouldn't even think about that there. So it kind of meant to look like a 3D effect, but it actually is just an in-camera trick. It's just the camera just pulling back while the gun is being extended forward. It's a nice little camera trick that I wouldn't have thought about, but again, it's James Gunn, so it's like weird. Like what more can you say, right? But anyway, Nova Corp show up. This basically the police that runs Xander come to arrest Peter and Gamora and Groot and Rocket, right? And one of them was played by John C. Reilly. I didn't see him coming a mile away. He was there.
Yeah. He was in Thriller, yeah.
Yeah, his character name is Roman Day. I didn't even know his name. I didn't know it up until this point while I was preparing for this review here, right?
Right.
And yeah, he has a history of arresting Peter. There's a nice little bit where he talks about how he arrested him for some shit that he did in the past, right? Now there's this great wide shot though where you see the Nova Corps ships, right? And they all shaped like these 8-point stars, right? And they're shining these beams on them, right? These gravitational beams, right? And then going back to cross dissolves, Ricardo, it does this subtle cross dissolve now into the Nova headquarters shred. And it has this 6-point star as the insignia, right? But it just looked like the gravitational beams meant to like just setting up the frame of the logo that we'll see in the next shot, Dread. Again, it's just these smart calls I wouldn't even think about, Dread.
Good transitions.
I'm like, what?
Transitions are underrated.
Yes. Also, speaking of characters, actors I didn't see coming. Going back to what you said, Tracy. Yeah, Glenn Close is in this movie though, and she plays Nova Prime, right? And yeah, I legit can't remember at that time the last time I saw Glenn Close in a movie.
Last thing I remember from her was Damages. That court setting thing that she had, that series she had was Damages, and I couldn't tell you what I saw her in after that. So to see her as Nova Prime was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, and her character name is Irani Nael. Again, I didn't even know the character name. That's the funny thing. Like you see John C. Reilly and I see Glenn Close, and I just thinking, oh, it's Glenn Close and John C. Reilly. I didn't know they have names. But yeah, inside the headquarters now we get, for me, one of the most memorable sequences in the movie, which I call the mugshot scene, right? So this is where we get our character back.
This is the trailer, but I think they changed this from the trailer.
I believe so. Yes. Yeah. And I love how it ends with Peter and he doing the whole wind up the middle finger bit. Yeah. And it's just, again, just going back to Chris Pratt and the acting, right? He does this fake startled face. He's like, oh, and then he says, oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know how this machine worked. I love that. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love that, right? So the Guardians are all sent to this high security prison in space, of course, called the Kiln, right? And on their way to the respective prisons, that's where we hear I Am Groot for the first time in the movie, right? I love how Peter thinks that it's just him commenting on what he's talking about, right? Because he and Rocket talking about, oh, we'll escape from the prison and we have the orb on us. And, Groot says, I am Groot. So you're just like, oh, you're just kind of making a comment, right? But then afterwards you realize, oh shit, this is literally what this man always says, right? Just that reveal that this is what he always says is funny to me. I love that.
There's a great payoff in the third film about this, how you don't really understand I Am Groot until the ending.
Oh, yes. I remember that, yes.
Right. And listen, it's still shocking to me that freaking, we call him, gosh.
Yeah, Vin Diesel, Dread. Easy money. Like we said earlier, Dread. The man
But get a
I
bag for this.
feel like that man was just in the studio for like a half hour, and he just told him, "Look, just say I am Groot in all these various
In
ways."
between his Fast and Furious franchise.
And
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Yeah. And there's
I
the
wondering
variant that we're going to.
what kind of bag you get for this, eh? How much I should listen. If you get one
Voice work is so important. So,
that's so wild, eh? I mean,
Yeah,
I can
bro.
understand Bradley Cooper, but this, God, man. And I'm
Yeah,
sure he
bro.
has serious bag for that, eh?
Of
For I
course, yeah.
understand, it's in every language, by the way, eh? If I remember correctly.
You serious?
Yeah, it's not just English.
well, that just adds even more.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Well, that clearly a D job right there. That's
You
like
know?
Mhm.
8 hours right there. So yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah.
man get
Right.
a big bag for this. Clearly.
Terry
Wow, I
Lawson
didn't even know that. I swear they just got this outsourced other voice actors to do the
No, I think
respective
it's him.
languages or something like that.
I think
Holy
it's him,
shit! Look
if I
at that.
remember correctly.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's a
Right.
line that Raccoon, that Rocket says that I always crack up about, where he's like, he don't know language as good as me and you. So all his vocabulary is as much as I and am and Groot. And the way
Yeah.
how Bradley says it, though, is like you said,
Yes.
and then it just struck me all the way off.
Yes, indeed. It's crass, but so cynical at the same time too, right? And then I love that we got the song that was all over the marketing for this, Blue Sweets, Hooked on a Feeling, right? Here's the thing, and it only hit me when I was watching this movie, right? Again, in preparation for this, right? The first time I heard this song in a movie was a little film called Reservoir Dogs, which also had this sort of 70s top 10 hit soundtrack, right? So
Yeah,
here's the
there's
thing, right?
another nostalgia man, which is Quinton. So yeah.
Yeah, but here's the thing, right? So Peter now, he spot one of the guys listening to the Walkman, right? Listen to the same song, right? He flip out, start a fight, and then there's this great reference. This, and again, seeing it for the first time, I didn't even know it was that, right? But this scene is a reference to Reservoir Dogs, right?
Right.
This is where Peter gets
Right.
shocked by the guard, right? Talk back to him, right?
Yeah.
Camera pans right. And it's basically moving away from Peter, just basically getting his ass beat, right? If you remember from Reservoir Dogs, where they play the song Stuck in the Middle, that's the scene where Michael Madsen literally was like proceeding to cut the ear off of this cop that he had tied up, right? And the camera does that same movement, that same right movement, moves away when the guy is getting cut. So you don't see the action, but they hear the guy screaming and they hear the song, right? So again, it's the same technique, right? You're using this really whimsical song while there's a scene of violence going on, but they don't show the violence, but the song accentuates it though, because the song clashes with what's going on, right? It's a classic film technique though, but this is the mere fact that James Gunn literally pulling from Tarantino's bag with what he did in Reservoir Dogs. So I was like, holy shit, I didn't even pick up on that, right? Also, I love how Peter gets the Walkman back later on in the show. That's after the whole escape scene, which again a bit, right? So, fun fact: the song that they play there, where the same song that the guy is listening to, is, we know it as the Pina Colada song, but the actual title is "Escape," the Pina Colada song.
Yeah.
I mean, not much more I could say about that, right? So yeah, folks, just want to hear your thoughts on this. In particular, the use of music for that hooked on a feeling. I should mention too, while that song is playing, right? Yeah, you're just seeing these characters just being like hosed down and this basically being treated like shit there just for like a few seconds. While this whimsical, there's that shot of Peter being covered with that orange googe, right? You know what I mean? While you hear this happy song playing, right? And then of course the shot where I think that's where we caught us off guard when we first saw it. Yes, seeing the back of Rocket Dread and like what looks like, oh gosh.
Wires
it looks like some like mechanical pieces taped onto his back Dread. It's like, oh, what's going on, right? But again, just your thoughts on this use of this song during this really grim and dark scene. There's any thoughts on that?
I'll tell you my one random thing that has little to do with it, but I'll tell you this. That hooked on a feeling, for you it was Reservoir Dogs. For me it was Ally McBeal. Ally McBeal had an episode where she was dreaming of this imaginary dancing ass baby. And that baby would be doing...
Oh, wait, that's the song that they play for that?
That was the song, if I'm not mistaken.
Whoa.
I think that was legitimate. And in the end, the psychiatrist told her, dance with the imaginary baby and then maybe a biological clock, blah, 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 blah. And she eventually does dance because everywhere she turns. So for me, That was my hilarity. Hearing that song, my brain immediately goes right back to Ali McBeal.
Yeah, that was like
And
a
as
super popular like internet GIF, I think, that they used for this thing.
yeah,
It was an internet GIF at the time.
I mean, even VH1 used to use it in a couple of their things back when VH1 was VH1. But that
Yeah.
is what that particular Hooked on a Feeling, that moment did for me. But again, with the whole seeing Rocket and his back exposed and him actually putting on our pants, you know what it was for me? As interesting as that was, it also gave me that whole, Disney characters who like Winnie the Pooh, or like Donald Duck and all this kind of thing. They all are one part or the other naked, and then they go and put on clothes because they're going out the road or whatever it is like that, and it looks weird. Somehow, for me, the whole half naked Rocket
Rocket.
trying to put on his pants and looking all like trying to get his clothes on and that kind of shit. That was kind of funny for me, but it really did like, okay, why is his back looking like that? That's
Yeah. So, Ricardo, I know you probably haven't seen Reservoir Dogs in ages, right? But just your thoughts on this use of the song, just that technique of using that
Yeah,
song while there's a scene of violence going on.
great editing, great ideas. You just coming together really, really well. And that's just good visual storytelling. It's smart.
Yeah, exactly. So back to the prison now. So in that prison now, that's where we are introduced to the last guardian. That'll be Drax the Destroyer, right? Played by Dave Bautista. And boy, just touching quickly on this man, Tread. I love how he basically is in the how to say, but he is in the E-level, Dread, as far as wrestler turned actors go, Dread. So he's up there with Dwayne Johnson right now. And I call him right now, John Cena is on his way up there. He's like B-level right now, but if he does star in a few more big movies, Dread, he'll be up there as well, right? But yeah, I mean, Batista actually killed it as Drax, right? And just what they do with him character-wise, right? But that's two things, right? So one, the destroyer aspect, and they say it later on, it has to do with the dozens, as they say, of goons, Ronan's goon that he killed in the past, right? But I love visually how he's introduced, right? So this is where basically a bunch of inmates was threatening to kill Gamora, and she's going into a cell, right? So the door is closed, and the camera just sort of zooms in on the mirror, and you see Drax sitting sitting away from her, right? Like in the not the basement layer, the lower level of the prison itself. And he's watching her, but you don't know what's going on. But you just seen him there looking at her, right? And this character design though, right? All right, so fun fact, this movie was nominated for best makeup and hairstyling, right? In addition to visual effects, of course, right? Of course, the visual effects nomination rightfully deserved, right? But I'll say the same thing for the makeup, but my god, this show has great makeup. And for me, one of the highlights though was Draxter, like just how he looks, right? I love that it is this sort of like alien version of like a Maori or Samoan
yes,
kind of like tribal
markings, yes.
markings, tattoos, right? If you look at it carefully, it's like that, right? I like that there are some on his face, but like if it was like Maori or Samoan, you would have see like you'd see like I think if I'm not mistaken, you see like the forehead covered as well too. But I think like the forehead is bare if I'm not mistaken. But there's like a couple stuff like on his cheeks and whatnot, right? But just as a design though, just as a makeup, like just the makeup alone though, I think it's fantastic, Dread. I agree to disagree. It was a Drax makeup.
No, I like
Yeah,
it.
great. Yeah, great. Yeah.
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 Boy, I imagine how much hours that man had to sit down to do this,
Yeah,
right?
no problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the one part.
Exactly. So there's a moment that follows now where some inmates snatch Gamora out of a cell, right? And they threaten to shank her, right? And before they do so, Drax interrupts, right? And he tells them about how this is where you hear, Ronan killed my wife and my daughter, right? So he feels like he should be the one to kill Gamora, right? And Peter steps in and suggests that they wait until Ronan shows up now. And then when he shows up now, Drax could take out Ronan instead of Gamora, right? And then he set up this great characteristic of Drax now. So Peter does the whole slitting of the throat sign with his index finger. Drax is like, why would I put my finger on his throat? Right? And then later on you find out all his people are completely literal. Speaking of which though, what is the name of his people though? Like Wait, like for me, I don't remember what the name of the race that he's from. I don't know.
That went over my head.
Destroyer is, oh gosh.
I don't think they ever say though, because I don't think we've ever seen more of his kind in the trilogy anyway, right? So it's kind of like that, right? But yeah, basically he does not understand general expressions and metaphors, right? I like this.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I don't think they ever say it, but it's I think it's Kai Lucian in the comic.
All right. Well, is at least is the race part of Marvel Comics lore or
right?
No? Well,
yeah, I think he's supposed to be the Kai Lucian people or something like that. I can't remember them. But some people say he's supposed to be just a mutated human, something like that, or mutate, or not really.
Oh, okay. All right. I just swear he's just an alien, you know.
No, he's an alien. He's a human, but he's a human in the same way you see humans all over the place.
Oh, okay. I understand.
Like that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Right.
So
you know.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, he does not understand.
I can't remember. Right.
Okay, yeah. So he doesn't understand metaphors. He doesn't understand expressions. But I love this a bit
this
where
is such a great recurring bit. Huh?
Yeah, I love there's a bit where Peter like watches this guy nearby who has a shank, right? He's like you know what this means? Like yeah, like I know what I mean. It's like it's just a bit of writing I wouldn't even think about that. Like you understand what this means? Like yeah. There's a moment later where Peter calls him a walking thesaurus, and oh gosh, like point for Batista's like dry delivery in this show, right? Where he says, "Do not ever call me a thesaurus." It's just the way how he says that, dude. I just love so serious. Yes, exactly. I love that, right? So later on we see a moment that I remember people went nuts when they first see this, right? And yeah, you know, I know a lot of people enjoy seeing this for the first time, an actual scene with Thanos Dread, right? Because if you remember, all we saw of him was just this brief shot in the mid-credits of the Avengers, right? But here you actually hear Josh Brolin's voice and you're seeing Thanos on this floated throne and whatnot, right? And boy, this
a lot
man
more purple than we see him in Infinity War.
That's true. Yeah. You know, we could make the argument is lighting or whatever. I don't know. I don't really care, right? But it's short, it's sweet. I just love how intimidating he is, Dread, right? Where basically he tells Ronan, yo, if you don't get this orb for me, Dread, if you come back empty-handed, I will bathe the starways in your blood.
Yeah.
I like, God damn. And that's all you need. That's all you need to know about Thanos. That's all you need to know about Thanos at this point. This man will come back for you, Dread. If you mess up, the man will come back for you, Dread, right?